Hello and welcome to Composerscape. I'm done trying to guess the episode because last time I guessed it, I was wrong. So this is our big DC universe episode. Specifically, we are going to be delving into the Snyderverse. We have now both seen the 4-hour spectacle that is Zack Snyder's Justice League. So we were going to do spoiler free, but you know what? It's been over a week now. We're going to give the full on our thoughts. We're going to talk about things, and it's happening now.
If you haven't seen it, pause this video,
Yeah.
go watch it, and 4 hours later come back and hit resume on the podcast.
Yes, 4 hours and 2 minutes. All right.
We'll be here.
So let's start off. I've seen it, I'm just going to say 4 times. 3 regular and once the black and white version. And Scott, you have seen it once. You grew up a Marvel guy, and I grew up a DC guy, although you grew up a comic book reader, and I grew up watching Super Friends. So I've been waiting for Justice League since I was 3 because of a cartoon.
I grew up on Super Friends. Didn't really ever... This is a really good point. Let's just go ahead and put this out there. Let's just lay this out on the table up front. I don't discriminate. I don't pick sides, favorites, that kind of thing. I mean, everybody's got their own favorite stories and characters and things like that, right? One of my earliest memories of going to the movies was seeing the original Christopher Reeve's Superman. It's one of my earliest memories of going to the movies. And somewhere at my parents' house, there's still old, what is like the Super 8, the old film reel to reel of me flying around in the front yard in my Superman underoos when I was like 4.
Like the scene at the end of Man of Steel.
With a red towel. Yeah, exactly like that. So I don't choose sides. I don't pick favorites. There's definitely characters.
I do remember in City of Heroes, your very first main character was a Superman type character.
Clone. Yep. So I'm just saying I don't pick favorites. And there is something that I have seen a little bit of, and maybe you can point to some specific examples of this from the Twitter sphere and the fans. And there's a little bit of a... I don't know how to describe it. Camps spring up, tribes, and there's a bit of a feeling of we beat Marvel, right? We won. We beat the Avengers. And why does there have to be a
controversial winner? And you know what? We're up to 40 followers. So since you've joined, we've almost doubled. But we're getting there. People are watching it without me advertising. But anyway, yeah, there are, and it goes both ways. There are Marvel people that won't watch a DC movie, and they always make excuses. They'll be like, "Well, Zack Snyder's the DC is so dark." Even Ryan Reynolds made a joke, but make no mistake, it was a joke. He wanted to be in Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is another story I'll get into.
Yeah,
but. And put the movies aside. This been going on forever. It's like you can't. Why can't I read Superman and the X-Men? There are like some people that would be shocked at that. Shocked. Really? It's like shocked. Yeah, I don't
understand.
Jeff Campbell. Dr. Jefferson Campbell is a Marvel guy.
Yeah.
And I asked him once, "Is like, have you seen someone?" He's like, "Hell no." He's like, "Hell no, that's DC." Like, literally. I think he watched the Batman movies because they reached the zeitgeist. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But other than that, the only comics he read was Marvel, and it's like a team. And that carried over to the movies, even though someone like Kevin Feige loved Man of Steel, as far as I know, in Batman v Superman. And he's like, "I hope they succeed." And everyone's like, "Oh, Marvel is competing with Warner Brothers. Disney is competing with Warner Brothers." It's like, unless they release a movie on the same weekend, which if you notice they generally don't do, they're not
No, of
competing.
course not. Yes, no.
They all just
And
want to make $1 billion on their movie, so they don't. Black Panther did not release the same weekend as Aquaman. It would have killed both movies.
right.
Both those movies made $1 billion because they released about a month apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I'd love to hear more people speak up about. And in general, that is the way that social media tends to work. People that
Yeah, it's
are
a team.
get along and easygoing and agreeable types of folks that generally don't find things to complain about. We're just on there kind of reading the news, minding our own business, and the comment section is filled with people who are apparently angry
Oh,
about something.
comment sections. And that reminds me, and then I'm never gonna find this because these guys tweet a lot. The Russo brothers,
yeah,
probably the best directors in the MCU.
Tony and Joe.
The day before the Snyder Cut came out, posted a really nice message for Zack, and I can't find it, on Twitter, saying they were, oh, here we go. Here it is. From two superhero junkies to another, so excited that your vision has truly been realized. Much respect. We'll be watching along with everybody else. From the Russo brothers.
That's awesome.
Straight to Zack.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the thing. You got the Marvel versus the DC, and I'm sorry, it's BS. Well, to me, and I think it is to you too, this is a feast.
Yeah.
We get Falcon and Winter Soldier the day after Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it's going to keep going. And then immediately we're going to get, I think, Loki's next.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And then the Suicide Squad in like August. That looks brutal.
So let's talk about the film. Some things that just very general observations that I want to point out. And I think there's definitely some parallels that we can draw here. From my perspective, anyway. Some people may disagree with this. We've talked about some of the other DC continuity films in the past, and in particular, I definitely feel like I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan. He's probably one of my favorite writer, directors, filmmakers. Definitely one of my top three. I'm an extraordinarily huge fan of Christopher Nolan, and Christian Bale is a fantastic actor. And I think I think the Nolan Bale Batman trilogy kind of stands on its own. It didn't have any obligation or didn't have the need to tie into anything else in the way that a lot of the MCU stuff does. They stand on their own. And as a fan of Christopher Nolan films, his fingerprints and his style and his very signature kind of filmmaking is all over it. Those are Christopher Nolan films. They're also Batman films, right? And so there's these layers and these different levels that you can view the movie that way. Now, I am also a Zack Snyder fan, and going back to his treatment of the Watchmen, which there were many moments in this Justice League film that I was kind of awed by his the photography, the cinematography, the pacing, the way that he has of kind of like taffy pulling, these moments where the strain and the emotion kind of it's like squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, where you almost feel for a moment like this scene is almost going on too long, but the music is great. And the pacing and the scenery and the cinematography and everything is just right. So, and it's the same experience when you watch the director's cut of The Watchmen, which is not quite 3 hours long. I think it's like 2 hours and 45 minutes long, right? It's not a short movie. And between films like that, 300, there's another one I'm forgetting. People are going to poke fun at me. Maybe.
I have not seen Sucker Punch. I've been waiting to see.
And that's a little more. Sucker Punch is a little bit more of just kind of a frenetic action.
Yeah.
The point here is that this was a Zack Snyder film.
Oh yeah.
And the differences between this and the theatrical release is.
They should take his name off of the theatrical release. They legitimately should. He didn't direct that.
I mean, there's plenty of footage and plenty of the story that remains in the Zack Snyder
Did
cut
you
of
catch
this
the
versus the
scenes
theater.
that were literally in the theatrical cut that Joss Whedon reshot? Like the whole Bruce Wayne
Yes.
first conversing with Aquaman. They
Yes.
completely reshot that.
Right.
You were
So
getting to
that
a point though. Sorry.
no, I mean, I think I said it. My point was that there is a huge element of this for fans of film and fans of directors that have a unique and signature style. If you're a fan of Zack Snyder's other movies, right, there's an appreciation to be gleaned from just watching this, aside from the DC film universe and tying into Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, the Wonder Woman movies, Aquaman. This is an opus, right? This is definitely a Zack Snyder film, and that's one of my biggest takeaways from it. And I've got lots of other things we can get into details here, but that's where I kind of would explain this film to people.
I love that feeling, and there are other directors I get that from. Christopher Nolan being one of them, where when you leave the theater, it's not that was awesome. It's like, what did I just see?
Yeah.
I'm going to need to process this.
Right.
And then after a couple of days, if it hit. And for me with Zack Snyder, actually, I'll be honest, Watchmen took me more than a couple of days. Watchmen was my first Zack Snyder experience, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
It was either that or the 300, and they both took me a while. And now it's like, oh yeah, that was art. It's like, it's this action movie, and it's like you take something that's supposed to be a very simple form, a very pop form, and then do it from an artist's perspective, and it's hard to process. And you don't just walk out of the theater going, yeah, that was badass. Woohoo, fights. So I had the same thing with Justice League, but then after I watch it the second time, which is why I say you need to watch it a second time, is then you'll start to settle into your opinion. And for me, I've got it up there with Infinity War.
Yeah.
That 4 hours, it's 4 hours. The only reason I know it's 4 hours is because I got to set the block of time aside to watch it. But once I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm on part 5. Yeah. It's been 3 hours.
In the age of binging television show, right? Seasons of TV shows.
Right.
Where people will quite literally watch 5 or 6 episodes of a TV show in an evening. It's
sometimes bad.
It's not really that significant, right? Are you still watching? Yep. Are you still there? Definitely, just from a filmmaking standpoint, I think it stands above anything else in the DC universe. I mean, that including Zack Snyder's other releases, right?
I'll still have to wait. I have to watch Man of Steel again, because that one has always been like, whenever people are like, what's your favorite DC movie? I'm like, Man of Steel. Man of Steel is the best, period. And I actually take it over the Nolan Batmans. Man of Steel just is so, like, if I'm ever feeling a little down in the dumps, bam, Man of Steel, put that on, and I'm just like energized. I don't know why, but Man of Steel is one of the more perfect superhero movies for me. But Justice League is going to give it a run for its money, and there's just a few scenes that immediately pop to mind. Justice League, I think it tapped into something that really gets someone like me, is like, I loved Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings were until the Justice League was announced and the Avengers and all of that, and these big superhero team ups started happening, Lord of the Rings was it for me. There's like, they're making movies of Lord of the Rings. I watched those cartoons repeatedly as a child, and then all of a sudden, Zack Snyder takes my two of my 3 favorite genres. Is like, we're just going to do this like this. We're going to take superhero movies and Lord of the Rings and put them together and see what we get. And I'm like, and that's what it is. Mm-hmm. That's like one of his biggest influences, other than several different comic books, is Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we plan to do a sort of scene by scene or sort of chapter by chapter kind of breakdown of the film. We're probably going to bounce around a lot. Something you said, I think one of the biggest things I appreciated about this movie, and this is towards the end, it's definitely in the the latter portions of the film, I mean, first of all, you have to understand that Superman is dead for most of the story. And
Yep.
since you brought up Man of Steel, I want to say this: in the theatrical release, they zapped him, brought him back to life, and then he flies away. And I think we got this very brief scene of him just saying, "Lois, I got to deal with this. I'm out," and he disappears until essentially the very end of the movie. He swoops in. Oh,
Yeah.
thank goodness he's here. And yeah, so in the Zack Snyder version of the film, we actually get to see Clark Kent, Superman, process the fact that I was dead, I was gone, right? The world appeared to kind of move on without me, and he takes Lois to their childhood home. And clearly, it seems to take him a little bit of time to kind of snap back into reality. And she's worried. Lois is very worried for a moment there where she thinks, is the lights are on, but it doesn't look like anyone's home. You haven't said anything. And when he finally speaks, she said, "Oh, you spoke." And he says something like, "Is that not something I used to do?" And so you could tell she's very concerned that, you just,
That scene was so gorgeous. How?
But you get to see him process all of this. And, as opposed to the theatrical release where he just flies away. And then at the end of the movie, he's back and welcome back, Superman.
They literally
hope
took
you're
out
doing
all
okay.
character development in that cut.
Right. And I guess that's what I'm getting at. You actually get to see there's a short arc there where he kind of processes it all and kind of, I think, gets to square with himself what happened in the previous film. And, when he comes to, he's angry at Bruce, but he sees Batman and he's very angry about it. And
yeah, that was intense. And he just sees it and starts going towards him. And speaking of Batman, his character arc was brilliant too. Because at the end of BVS, in Batman v Superman, Batman was broken. Batman was destroyed because the Joker killed Robin.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then when he fights Superman and all this happens, he finds his humanity again. But even then, he's not okay because he still goes to the warehouse and he's still killing dudes, right?
Yeah.
But when Superman dies for humanity, then all of a sudden we get this new Bruce Wayne that we see in Justice League. The Alfred's like, why? He's like, why do you think he'll come? And he's like, because faith, Alfred. And all of a sudden you have this Bruce Wayne that's
right.
It took a different turn from the Dark Knight Returns Bruce Wayne, the Frank Miller Bruce Wayne, and now he's back more to
he turns a corner and kind of that's right.
I'm a superhero now, and I'm doing the right thing, and I have faith that Superman's going to come save us. So he goes into this suicide mission because there's no way they're winning without Superman. Just knowing he's going to come.
Yep. No, it's a good point. There are some, I'll just go ahead and throw this out there. I mean, I think there were some scenes in the film that, and I probably need to watch it again, but there were definitely some scenes in the film that I didn't fully understand. I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there. So in the first act, one of the earlier scenes of the film, you see this much more drawn out, kind of longer version of Bruce searching for Arthur Miller, for the Aquaman.
For Arthur Curry.
And he's Arthur Curry.
Not
Sorry.
the author.
Arthur Curry. Sorry. And he's going over this mountain and he's in the snow and and he comes to this little town, right? And it's the same town we saw in the first one. And I guess you can't get to that town by boat at that time of year because it's, the part of the world that they're in, the ice, right? He can't get there. Still, in my mind, I'm thinking he's Bruce Wayne, right? He's got some kind of bat jet or something that, he can. There was probably an easier way for him to get there, but I digress.
All right, I have a valid, this is now it's just us comic book guys. Let's just put Justice League aside. If this were a comic book, The reason he doesn't show up in the Batwing or in his helicopter or in anything else is because what he knows is that Arthur Curry, the Aquaman, sees that coming. Arthur
Okay.
Curry, the Aquaman, going to jump in the bay, swim away.
That's a good point.
He's never going to meet him.
That's a good point. No, I'm glad you pointed that out.
And
Although,
didn't they say something about no helicopters were allowed in or something during the conversation?
okay, maybe they did. I need to go back and watch it again.
You do.
Although in the conversation,
I need to read House of M in its entirety, and you need to rewatch Justice League.
it seems apparent in the conversation that Aquaman doesn't really know who the Batman is, and he's kind of surprised, right? He's like, "So you fight bad guys dressed as a bat?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's carried on since Batman v Superman. Batman was never a public figure other than the bat signal.
Yeah.
Like criminals probably knew who he was, and people who he generally doesn't go around saving rich people, right? He's saving like commoners and stuff like that, and getting bad guys off the street and dealing with the Joker, but he's never in the strictest like original version of Batman. He's a ninja. He's but now he's famous. Yeah. But even then, maybe not, because Lois Lane wasn't around to report on all this. No one knows this giant battle with Steppenwolf happened.
Oh yeah.
Except the Star Labs and the military.
So the scene in this Icelandic Nordic village, wherever it is that they are, somewhere in the Iceland. I'm not entirely sure how I was supposed to interpret the way that the village and the women, they're singing this song when he goes off in the sea and they pick his sweater up off the ground like it's some kind of holy relic. I guess they kind of worship him.
Yep.
And they're singing some kind of a folk hymn almost.
And that's actually what it is. It's something about the sea.
Okay.
He is much like Diana and Kal-El and you remember the Justice League cartoon at the end when Diana is like, to Shazam, she's like, "You're Zeus," and then the Flash, "You're Mercury," and she listed all, and that's what Zack is really. He refers to it as like all the gods, which is based on a Joseph Conrad, the hero's journey. They're all gods,
right?
So, and I think that scene was to say he comes once a year or however often a king tide happens to bring them food. Gotcha. And he comes out of the sea. So he is a god to them, even though.
Okay. This is why we have these talks, so I can understand the movie. If I stop to give it more thought.
Eventually
it makes a lot of sense.
Zack Snyder, he'll clear all. Actually, with what I think would happen if we ever had Zack talk to us, you all would end up talking about Marvel comics the whole time.
Nah. Well,
he's a huge Star Wars fan, so we would get off on that tangent. And who wants to see an adult Zack Snyder Star Wars movie?
And we're back.
Yep, and we're back. So we took a brief break so you won't think we're complete lunatics, because we've been now we're going to get into a little bit of minutia. We're going to talk some Easter eggs, and I think over the coming weeks there's a good chance we'll probably break it down further without devoting a whole episode to it. So Scott, I
want to pose a question, and there are many examples of this, and it usually looks amazing. And what was interesting here with the Justice League is that all of the scenes with the Flash weren't always this way. But here's the question. A character has super speed, but the scenes are in slow motion.
Well, there were a character has super speed
in many movies and shows. They do that.
Snyder, the slow motion king of cinema.
Yes.
It was Destiny. Yes. But when he didn't do the slow motion, I think, and there was literally an article saying there was 10 minutes and so seconds of slow motion in this movie.
Yeah.
And something like that. But it's when he didn't do the slow motion, that blew my mind. For instance, with the Flash,
Yes.
when the Flash runs out of the building and everyone comes out and then the rocks are falling, and instead of doing that in slow motion, we get to see what it looks like in full speed. And
Right.
That was badass.
Yes.
But when he's traveling near the, as they say, in a percentage of the speed of light, like when he's going to get Wonder Woman's sword, it's like even in slow motion you see him moving.
Well,
like the Flash is
again
the fastest thing.
That's right, and I don't want to make a lot of comparisons from different directors and different films.
But before you go there, what I was going to say is the other example of a non-slow motion thing that he would often do slow motion that it boggles my mind why this got cut out of the theatrical, is when Wonder Woman bursts in to stop the bankers. It's mostly slow motion because she's got 15 seconds, but the very first shot of her deflecting bullets with her super speed going, that blew me up. You should watch. Excellent. Do you know who Leslie Jones? Tell me you know who Leslie Jones is.
I'm way ahead of you.
We saw her live tweets. You got to watch all of them.
We used to watch her Game of Jones.
Oh yes, it's like Game of Jones, but there's got to be 2 hours worth of tweets of her yelling at the screen, and it's awesome. So she didn't throw it high enough. Anyway, go on. More about the Flash because
what I was going to say is, I think the first time that this was, and still I have to say this, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, the best scene of a superhero with super speed, that being used in a film in a similar is the Days of Future Past, is the Evan Peters Quicksilver.
Yeah, that's number
where
2
he's in
now.
Where they're breaking out of the Pentagon, and he's pulls the guy's pants up and everything. And what's interesting there is that it starts out in slow motion, but then you get to see he's moving normally while the rest of the world is moving in slow motion. And I have no idea the hours and the dollars that went in with the CGI and how in the world they pull that off, right? But it looks amazing, right? But if that was the only thing, occasionally some of the scenes where the Flash is doing his Speed Force thing and everything's kind of moving in slow motion, I'm like, I get it, right? Because I don't have super speed and I can't watch it.
The difference is it was a difference of opinion in the way that Zack and Ezra thought the Flash would have to move at that, like with the scene where he's reviving Superman and it looks like he's moving in slow motion. It's not he's moving in slow motion. It's that he's taking these giant leaps because he's moving so fast. He's not going to do the Bugs Bunny run.
Sure.
Fast. He does these giant leaps and he's using Speed Force as opposed to actual super speed.
That's right. And what was amazing about that is clearly Ezra had taken some time and apparently really studied how speed runners, Olympic runners, their form, like what he did with his hands. I'm like, he looks like those guys that run the 40-yard dash in the Olympics, right? He really, he had that down. He nailed that.
I was going to put down that much like the Days of Future Past Speedster scene was my favorite until this movie. And it's, I guess it's less because they're both equally amazing visually to me, I'm more amazed by the Justice League, but the emotional content of the Flash saving the Justice League, like they're dead. The world is being exploded and he's just like, stop.
Wow. Yep.
And then he reverses time, but the speech he gives himself, holy shit! Ezra right there owned that. That it's like I'm getting chills thinking about it. And to me, and when he's running, you notice the world is being reconstructed under his feet. The lights are being popped back up as he's running backwards in time, and that.
And it took me a minute to actually realize that what we were seeing was the shockwave from this explosion moving in reverse.
They show the explosion earlier in the movie when Cyborg, when he first connects to the mother box, it shows him all that could possibly happen. Yeah. They show the world what was happening.
Well, I don't misunderstand me. I think he did a fantastic job. When I say he, Zack Snyder, the CGI, the effects, the presentation, it's the best Flash that there's ever been in a film, and I don't know
Oh god.
that there are any other examples that I
I
can
mean,
think of
even
off
in
the
the
top of my head.
theatrical cut, the
I mean,
Flash
there
was
have been
great.
Flash has been in at least 2 television shows, 3. He's been in TV shows, and
Well,
the CW
on his own
show,
show too, but
it's
he's
a
been
TV
in Arrow
show.
and Supergirl and every
Yeah,
other thing.
I mean the budget is
Don't get me wrong,
smaller.
I love Justin.
It's
Justin's a great Flash,
yeah, um, eh,
but Ezra's the best so far.
yeah. I thought that the most noticeable difference between this film and the theatrical release was in the writing and the script, and the development of his character was very different. And
Yep.
there was
I've been dying to talk to you about this.
yeah, and
when we had it on a previous episode, we were like, "What's the Flash do? He's supposed to be this criminal guy."
Yeah.
And they cut it out. He was getting his degree, and that's
right.
totally how he could have had the accident in a lab at a university.
Yes.
He was getting his degree. He didn't just randomly get a low-level job at a CSI. He probably already knows this stuff.
That's further down on the list. I wanted to say what I think is the most important character aspect that's the big difference, and we talked about this on a previous episode, is in the theatrical release, the Flash is basically thinking, what the hell do you want me to do? I run fast. All I do is I usually just zip in and sort of poke someone in the eye, and then I run away. But
Zack was like, what? When someone asked him, it's like, does he say that? Zack's like, what? Why the fuck would he say that? It's the Flash. Yeah. He could touch someone and send them flying across a room.
Yeah.
Because he's like a bullet.
Yes. And that, thinking about what I said earlier about the physics of super speed, when he goes through the window at the pet store, when he rescues Art, and it makes perfect sense because all he has to do is just reach out and touch. Right, he's trying to, give it the smallest surface area there to just go through the window, and it just shatters
little clip
outward.
Has been floating around since 2017.
Oh,
I think it was like briefly in the trailer for the original movie for the theatrical cut.
That was the funniest moment in the entire 4-hour movie. The best, and I love the fact that they gave the Flash some humor. The hot dog. Suzanne and I both looked at each other. Was like, "What does he do? Why did he grab a hot dog?" And I thought he's going back. He to the
thinks
pet store.
At the speed of light too.
He's going back to the pet store. He's going back to the dogs. And she's like,
"I love that they kept the humor, but made him smart. He's supposed to be like it's like." At one point, Aquaman's like, "I hope you two know what you're doing," talking about the Flash and Cyborg.
Yeah.
When they were doing their electric thing. And I want to mention this too. We're just going to hit on all the crazy things. That scene, the Superman revival scene. And now I've seen it a few times. They're doing Cyborg said, I always said Ray. Well, it is Ray Fisher. He says, all right, I'm going to count from, count from 3. And he goes, 3, 2, 1. Boom, sees all the crazy thing. We get to see Darkseid kill Aquaman, the Omega beams. You can't dodge the Omega beams, and neither can whoever was trying to save Aquaman.
I almost forgot. We got to see them. Granted,
awesome.
It was just in this little.
I haven't seen them above ground.
That's right.
But did you see who Superman was cradling right before Darkseid put his hand on his shoulder?
I'm gonna have to watch this movie again.
Peru or Uncle Owen. I'll give you a hint. Who's the key to Superman?
What?
Who is?
I'm gonna have to go back and watch this scene again. It was Lois, right?
Lois. He was cradling a fried to the crisp Lois. But anyway, so that all happens. And then he says, I swear, and I've seen this scene 4 times now, and I am now 85% certain that he does not say go. He says no. And then the Flash is like, what? Did you say go? And then the mother box hears, or the spaceship hears go, and drops the mother box and resurrects Superman.
Yeah. So to be clear here, how is it that he was able to see all of that?
Mother box showed him. And Ray Fisher said, someone asked him, is that it was literally like the question from Christmas Carol. It's like, was that a future that is going to be or that could be? And Ray Fisher's like, that he saw one potential future. Okay. He saw the Knightmare Future. Right. We've seen 2 scenes of the Knightmare Future already. And that's the future where Um, Somehow Darkseid kills Lois, and with Lois dead, Clark slash Kal-El loses all hope and all reason and
Yeah.
succumbs to the anti-life equation. That's the
Right.
evil Superman you see in the future. Is he has succumbed to the anti-life equation. I think in
Yeah.
the cartoon, Batman was the one that succumbed, not Superman.
This is super hair splitting, but if I'm not mistaken, there's a couple of times in the in this movie where they refer to a Darkseid and Apocalypse, and that their entire force is being from essentially an alternate reality from another
Yep.
universe is the term that they use. And I don't
Yeah,
ever remember that being presented in any comics, animated shows, movies ever saying that Darkseid's from some other quantum reality, right? He's like crossing dimensions in order to get here. He's just on another planet.
Well, in
very
all
far
fairness,
away.
the ones that said that were the Amazons.
Yeah,
And although they're like all powerful, they have not really been in the modern world
true.
in
Fair enough.
5,000 plus years. But
Right.
also it's, I don't know, it's an interesting, like I put it this way, if you read, there was a recent storyline in Justice League, the comics where, it wasn't that recent now, God, thank you pandemic, it's been like a year.
Mhm.
They were, the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor, right, from Crisis on
Mhm.
Infinite Earths?
Yeah.
Well, apparently they have a mother, and she's horrible, and they all they don't live in any specific universe. So I kind of feel like Darkseid, it's the same issue. He doesn't
Right.
live in the Zack Snyder movie, or maybe even in the comics. I don't know. I haven't read enough about Darkseid. He hadn't shown up in a while, like not in the 2 years I've been reading comics. Maybe he lives in a different universe and just screws with all the other universes.
Right.
I mean, the boom
There's
tubes can't cross universes, right?
Right. I have no idea. I don't have. Yeah, I haven't read the manual.
There's
I don't
more
know.
reason to restore the Snyderverse. Hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Because I want
What's
to see this,
interesting,
I want to see this world now.
right? There is an analog to that in the Marvel universe, and I think several episodes back, we actually, when we toyed with the idea of doing a book club, we toyed with the idea of reading the Everything Dies, that the whole where the Illuminati, and they get together and realize that Earths are crashing together, and they become aware of this
Oh yeah,
sort of
that's on,
sect
but
of
that's not one of the ones we can't read because it's not available, right? We just
right.
decided to do House of M first.
Yeah. We also talked about what's funny, going back to the very beginning of this episode. We also talked about digging up the only legitimate published Marvel and DC crossover event that, to my knowledge, has ever been. It's the Justice League and the Avengers big crossover event, which is an
You
amazing
want to know
story, but
how to
it's
make
not
two movies
available
that
in
would each
print.
make $2 billion?
Yeah,
Warner Brothers and Disney get together and get Zack Snyder and the Russo brothers, 2 movies, The Avengers versus the Justice League, complete non-canon in both universes, full cast, Cavill, Affleck, Gal Gadot, Chris Evans, everybody, Tony Dunn, Robert Downey Jr., everybody.
Tony
It would be
Jr.
expensive to make, but that would be that Avatar wouldn't have a chance. That movie, each one of those movies would make, it wouldn't matter if it's stupid, it would make a ludicrous amount of money.
Right.
And at the end, of course, they would both have to get together to fight both Thanos and Darkseid, which,
right.
Oh, I want to see that movie. Okay.
Well,
but anyway, let's get back to the Snyder thing here.
Well, last thing, little tidbit that I wanted to mention, and you were very, very excited about getting to see Martian Manhunter, and your prediction was correct as far as the casting, right, the character goes. And you're right, it's a little creepy when you think about he was the Secretary of Defense in Batman versus Superman, right?
I will say Zach did specify that he admitted it was more like remember when in Empire Strikes Back when Leia kisses Luke and George Lucas swore up and down that he had it planned from the beginning that they were brother and sister?
Right.
But Carrie Fisher says, no, he thought of that on the plane after Empire Strikes Back. That was a new idea. Zach admitted that in Man of Steel, he's like, no, in Man of Steel, I didn't really think about it. But he said, but in Batman v Superman, he's like, yeah. I was like, this is this is my Martian Manhunter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was creepy that he was Secretary of State.
What do you think the significance was of the scene where he basically impersonates Lois, isn't it?
Yeah, it is what I hit on. I don't know if we were recording when I did. No one knows Batman v Superman, Man of Steel. Lois Lane is telling the world about the things they need to hear that they don't want it. Like Perry said, you're gonna just drop this story that we're not alone and that everything people know is wrong and this and that. And she's like, and then she leaks it anyway. But in Justice League, she's completely absent.
Right.
So this whole battle happens, the battle in the tunnels, and the final battle in the middle of nowhere, and no one knows about it because there's no Lois Lane. And that's why he went there to get her out of her funk. Because like he said, the world needs Lois Lane. Because they do.
That makes sense.
In his universe, she's the one that tells everyone what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Which is fun. There's a couple of things in a movie that was filmed in 2016 that are so relevant now, and that being one of them, that the media is important and they're not all fake news, horrible people that should be.
In the interest, I guess, of keeping this podcast somewhat succinct, let's kind of move to the epilogue of this movie. And since we're on the topic of Martian Manhunter, I feel like Bruce Wayne's his affect when the Martian Manhunter shows up on his back
porch. Like, sure, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what to make of that. I mean, I don't know if he's just, like you said earlier, we have a sort of brighter, more hopeful Batman at this point. Yes, and since they won, and he's like, okay, and we can do this. And
I think he didn't see him in any nightmares.
Right.
And the impression I've gotten from Martian Manhunter that the reason he disguises himself is his own self-conscious thing that he thinks when people sees him, they'll be afraid of him, his appearance. But the fact is, and they did such a good job with the CGI that despite his alien appearance, when you looked at him, he didn't look evil. He just looked. But here's the other thing. And when we weren't recording, you were like, what's the deal with Green Lantern?
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be Jon Stewart.
Oh, really?
He wanted to film a scene at the very end where Jon Stewart comes up representing the Green Lantern Corps.
Oh, I see. Instead of Martian Manhunter. You didn't
allow it. He has him cast. It's one of the guys that's in Army of the Dead. The African-American gentleman in that. I can't remember the guy's name, but we've seen him in other things. Very, very good actor. Perfect. Just like if you saw him, it's like, this dude is definitely Jon Stewart.
Okay.
Had the whole thing planned. They're like, we refuse to let you do this. And then they also like, and this is back in 2017. They're also like, Martian Manhunter's stupid. Why do you want him in there? Clearly, who doesn't understand the comics now? Execs don't understand them. The Martian Manhunter is literally a founding member of the Justice League.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Right.
And possibly the most powerful character, although the way Zack's angling it, it's looking like it's going to be Cyborg. But Martian Manhunter is possibly the most powerful character in the DC comics on the hero side. I know, Superman fan right there, you're cringing, but Martian Manhunter can take over. He's like Professor X plus Superman.
Yeah, I mean, this is super nerdy comic kind of stuff here. We're going to kind of argue theoretically, their weaknesses. Kryptonite is a lot more rare than fire.
That is true.
Fire is much more common.
But don't forget, there are two characters right now in the actual movie universe that can mess Superman up. And Martian Manhunter would know about him because he knows about everybody. Black Adam and Shazam.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Magic is kryptonite to Superman.
Yeah. Right. Well.
But back to, let's focus on Justice League. And remember, I told you that I have to say this. The really nerdy thing I got so excited about it was that the boom tubes boomed. That first scene where we first get boom tube on Themyscira and it knocks all the Amazons back against the wall, it was like, yes, because in the comics, when a boom tube goes off, they'll just go boom. They put a giant panel spanning, often page spanning word boom.
Right.
I loved it. And I loved that underwater it didn't boom quite as much. That scene was like horror movie stuff. When Steppenwolf goes to take the mother box and the guards are kind of looking over the edge and then he comes up from the depths to grab him.
Yeah, Steppenwolf, we haven't really said anything about that, but the animated armor was very cool. Yeah.
Very cool. Like when he was going into battle, the thing went
mm-hmm.
Memes have already been going around of sad Steppenwolf when he calls and decides like you can't come home until you give us 50,000 words, and he's literally making the face of Puss in Boots from Shrek 2. He's got his big black eyes going, and then if you watch the animation, he like gulps. It's crazy, but that's Weta Digital. That's the same people that did the special effect. Those are the people that make Gollum.
Gotcha.
Steppenwolf is possibly the biggest upgrade visually to this movie, other than literally getting to see Darkseid and Desaad and Granny Goodness. Although Granny Goodness, they kept her in the back because they weren't able to cast her yet.
So Desaad, I couldn't help it. I had to put this out there. Every time we saw Desaad, all I could think of was the character Klytus from the 1980 Flash Gordon film.
Oh my God!
People that are familiar with that movie are going to know exactly who I'm talking about. But that's all I can think of. Klytus. This character looks kind of like Doctor Doom. Metal faceplate with a big cloak. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the post-apocalyptic what-if kind of future. In the epilogue, we get this part of that footage, and none of the footage that was in the theatrical release was in this movie.
Nope.
Where they actually capture Batman, and he's going thinking he's finding a shipment of kryptonite. In the theatrical release, they set this trap, and he goes into this truck, and he thinks he's getting a chunk of kryptonite, and he opens up the crate, and it's just like a green flashlight. And they capture him. Superman shows up before he kills these prisoners. We don't get any of that, but rather we see a scene where Batman it's
Superman. We got that then.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
The new Nightmare sequence is a different time, and I can't.
Well, it's clearly the same setting.
Lays out a lot for us.
You see the armies of the parademons, and the world is in flames, and they're trucking across some sort of post-apocalyptic Mad Max scene, and it's Batman and who else is with them? It's
Mera.
And
you're talking about in Justice League, not Batman v Superman.
Yeah, yes, correct.
It's Batman, Mera with the Trident of Atlan, Deathstroke,
and that's what I was trying to think of.
In the Flash,
yeah. Deathstroke without his mask on.
None of this would be possible without the Flash and Cyborg,
right?
And then it's really interesting when they meet the Joker. Oh my God, that was so perfect. I will admit I was wrong. I thought Batman would use his F-bomb when he saw like one of the big villains and be like, "Oh fuck!" But no, it was threatening the Joker. Their interaction. Holy shit, that was amazing. That whole interaction. If you see behind the scenes, like Zack Snyder is literally like this far from Jared Leto's face with the camera the whole time. But Jared Leto's Joker told us a lot. One, that's not their only attempt. So what we saw in that nightmare sequence is not possibly the same timeline as what we saw in Batman v Superman. They may have tried this over and over and over again because Jared Leto's like, how many timelines have you done this in where you can't face up that you have to sacrifice yourself to win? He's like, but no, you send me to do it. And Jared Leto's brilliant. I mean, they filmed that in Zack Snyder's freaking backyard.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well.
But you were asking something about that. I was hoping I got lucky and explained it, but probably not.
No, you did. You did. And it's
It's
just more of this, what if
yeah. Well, here's what I
possible
think. It's
future.
not necessarily a what if. It's a what's happening in the future. So they try to save the day. They try to stop Superman from succumbing to the anti-life equation. They try different
Mhm.
things. Flash gets on the cosmic treadmill. That's why in Batman v Superman, after the nightmare sequence, you see the Flash there going.
Yeah.
He's like, "She's the key, Lois." Then he looks. He's like, "I'm too early," and
Yeah.
that was the really important line because apparently
Yeah.
Cyborg is trying to calculate exactly when to send the flashback so
Yeah.
that Bruce can save Lois.
Right.
And
Well,
it's a bit of a spoiler because you didn't realize that was Superman holding Lois, but I was kind of like, who else would Superman be holding? So I don't
okay.
consider it that much of a spoiler.
So there's a lot of details in some of these scenes that
It's a
pass
Zack
by
Snyder movie.
very quickly. Right.
That's why I'm
and
like, you gotta rewatch it.
They pass by very quickly in what is a very long film.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess, just in the interests of expressing some criticism, frankly, right? This is one of the things that I would kind of have some beef with. Details like that I feel like are quite important to point out to people. Like, this is why you're seeing this, and this is why this is important, rather than having a half second of a flat, this little thing that pops up on the screen and you see it for a half a second and you can't even understand what you're seeing. And yet we have a scene where these girls are singing a folk hymn to the King of the Sea for a minute and a half.
Don't forget.
As beautiful as that was, I'm just pointing out, like, this priorities.
Don't forget, except for the Martian Manhunter and the post-apocalyptic scene, and the very, 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 very end of when Martian Manhunter was visiting Lois, when it shows him turning into Martian Manhunter and walking. That like 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes was the only, or I think it's 4 minutes, was the only thing filmed last year. Everything else was filmed in 2016 when Zack Snyder thought he got 2 more movies after this.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was playing the long game.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense.
He was showing that snippet, and the only reason I know 100% certainty that Superman's holding a dead Lois Lane is because he told us that the reason Superman becomes evil is because Batman wasn't he put Lois in the Batcave to protect her, and Darkseid still got to her and killed her. He wasn't able to protect Lois Lane. That's why in the future, Batman is the one leading the charge. He feels, as usual, he feels responsible for fucking up.
Right.
And that's why everyone wants to see the next 2 movies. I mean, Warner Brothers is going to be throwing away a lot of money if they don't find a way to do this.
I hope they do. I mean, I know they've obviously had plans in the works for the Flash film, for a Green Lantern film.
So I was saying, Zack dropped the Justice is Gray, or Zack and HBO Max. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. What I do know is it's AT&T and Jason Killar, and he is he runs all of it. And you have Warner Media and HBO Max here and WB Pictures here. But Jason Killar runs that. So when Ann Sarnoff at WB Pictures says, we aren't doing any more Zack Snyder's movie, it's a cul-de-sac, it's over, that don't mean shit because it was put on HBO Max and she has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But her and Walter Hamada have been literally, how many, like the Suicide Squad trailer dropped today. We are barely a week after the Snyder Cut. Whereas after Wonder Woman 1984 dropped, they waited 2 weeks before there was anything.
Yeah.
They are literally trying to sabotage it. This is worse than what Disney did to John Carter from Mars. By the way, have you ever seen that?
Oh, yeah.
It's a decent movie. They just didn't advertise it. That's why it bombed.
Sure it is.
They literally sabotaged their own movie for some reason.
Yeah. No, it was entertaining. I thought so.
Yeah. But it's the same thing. So it really comes down to, forget Warner Brothers Pictures. This will not be a theatrical release. If we get Justice League 2 and 3, it'll be on HBO Max, maybe even in a series format, which would be pretty perfect for Zack Snyder.
Well, on that note,
Yep.
without getting too long in the tooth here, I think we will plan to do another episode, probably not as long, where we're going to talk about Marvel stuff because we have a
our
lot to
next
talk about.
episode, we're going to catch up on Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
That's right.
House of M.
Yeah.
I read the first, and I just remembered something. That first chapter, that like the whole last quarter of it is she thinks the Avengers are gonna and the X-Men are gonna assassinate her.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I gotta get back into that. But yes, so we are hitting up Marvel next time.
Well, there's a comment you made about making it a series, and I'm trying to remember this quote from, I think it was Kevin Feige. I'm pretty sure who said this. It was an interview talking about the series and just the production and the writing and everything in the series, where they wanted each episode to have the tone and the pacing and the scope of a film, of a movie. And it's one of the reasons why this is the first of these Marvel shows, and even including the other, like the Star Wars shows, with Mandalorian and stuff that they've done, where typically most TV shows, and those included, have a different director each episode. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is not. The crew, the director, everything's going to be the same.
So it's almost what the Snyder Cut was supposed to be. It was supposed to be released as 6 episodes.
Right. Very much like that.
Which would have worked great. I'm not going to lie, it would have been tough to wait the 6 weeks.
We'll talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier. We'll get together here in probably Sunday and talk about that. But at least the first episode absolutely struck that tone to me. I felt like I was watching an MCU film.
Yes. I will say the only thing,
the pacing, the writing, everything.
Yeah, it was awesome. The action was great. The story was great. But I will say this, it didn't, and I'm going to see how it goes, it didn't stick. Like, if we would have tried to talk about it tonight, I would have been at a loss. It didn't stick in my head the same way WandaVision did.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It didn't, because it wasn't as crazy. Maybe. It's a little more grounded in the regular MCU. That's not a complaint. I'm just saying, I still remember we could talk at length about the finale of WandaVision right now, like a month later. And I'd be like, yeah. And this happened, and then, oh my God, I had that fight, and it was like Vision, and oh my God, the Vision battle. And I remember it all vividly. But yeah, and I am going to mention, I think that The Mandalorian and WandaVision and all of these things happening on Disney Plus are the things that could possibly save Zack Snyder's universe.
Mm-hmm.
WandaVision, $150 million to produce that season.
Mm-hmm.
You give Zack Snyder $150 million to make Justice League 2 as a season, or even as a movie, he can do it. Maybe the special effects won't be quite as great, but you never know.
Right.
He could throw in his own money. The dude is a producer, him and his wife are. But anyway, so that is...
I hope he's not listening to this. Right. That's funny.
I hope he is. You want to interview Zack Snyder.
He's not a charity.
You know who would be awesome to interview is Ray Porter. You should look up Ray Porter, because this guy plays the most evil villain in possibly all comics. Unlike Thanos, Darkseid has no good intention whatsoever. He simply wants all of existence to be his. He's an awful person.
That reminds me.
But the guy who plays him is one of the sweetest humans alive. So Ray Porter is an absolute treasure. And that's where I will leave it. I'm not going to say don't forget to like and subscribe, because I have a big thing in the credits that says it. And at some point in the next couple of weeks, Scott Hall will be recording a raging guitar track to our new theme song. So be ready for that.
Maybe.
All right. And you'll probably get 2 episodes this week. We'll get this one, and then we'll have our Marvel ones. So it'll be something for everybody. So have a good night.